Hi, I'm Amy Hannon, and nothing thrills me more than people and food. I'm a preacher's wife, a mom of 3, and I own my own specialty kitchen store. I've kept an open door and a well-stocked fridge, which means I have fed a lot of mouths over the years. So welcome to my kitchen. This is Cooking Today. Hi, welcome to Cooking Today. So glad that you're with me. I have got some of the best smelling stuff going on in here already. Bacon, we love bacon. So today, the reason I have bacon already all fried up and delicious and brown and crispy is because I am making steakhouse wedge salad with the most amazing grilled honey balsamic skirt steak bites right beside it. I mean, I love that meal so much. It is kind of one of our date night meals, like when we just kind of get kind of the itch to go out. A lot of times we'll just go just about anywhere that we can get a really good wedge salad. And if we can share a little steak, I mean, we're golden. We're good to go. We went out the other night with my friend Beth. Remember Beth? She was here and we made brownies. We went out with her and her husband and we got a steakhouse wedge. I mean, I just love it. And so I'm just kind of going to do my little spin on it myself, kind of taking some of the ways I've seen it before and kind of mixing some of the fun things that I love to do, like with my tomatoes that are going to go on there. You know, a classic steakhouse wedge is basically a wedge of you know, iceberg lettuce that you've cut and quartered. So it kind of makes like a triangle like this, thus the word wedge. And so I love to eat that way. You kind of get in there with your fork and your knife and you kind of cut and go, just kind of go to town. But I'm actually going to do it in like longer kind of romaine leaves. It's a little bit easier to eat and it's real pretty on the plate. And we're going to marinate our tomatoes in basil and olive oil and get some great flavor in our tomatoes that are going to go right on top. But first we need to get our steak to marinate. Now let me tell you, I've got a skirt steak. And I've already cut it in half. It's a real long piece of meat. This one is about, I don't know, a little bit more than 1.5 pounds or so. And the skirt is kind of similar to the flank. They're both kind of from the underside of the cow, but it is kind of right down there in the very middle of the belly. And it is not necessarily known for being a tender piece of meat. But the flavor, look at all this marbling. There's a lot of fat in it. The flavor is so good. And you glaze this and marinate this in this marinade right here and then get it on a hot grill and then eat it with a bite of this good creamy. We're gonna make homemade ranch dressing. I mean, from scratch homemade ranch dressing. We've made some shortcut homemade ranch before using a little powdered mix. We're doing it from scratch, gang, and it is such a delicious flavor. So you're gonna get that creamy with all that herb and then this yummy, crispy, salty bite of steak. I mean, every bite, so delicious. So in our marinade, let me tell you what we've got. This is a 1/2 cup of balsamic vinegar, and then we're adding a couple of shakes of Worcestershire to it. And then I squeezed in several tablespoons of honey into here to kind of give it that good sweet, and that's what will kind of get that good crispy bite on the grill. You know, that bite that's delicious because of all that sweet. And then I'm just shaking in about a teaspoon or so of ground mustard. You could add in brown sugar. You could add in a little bit of garlic powder. You know, just kind of see what it is or the flavors that you like. But you definitely want these 4 in there. It is a little delicious marriage. Okay, so I've given that a good little stir. That honey kind of gets stuck on the bottom, so we want to be sure that you can feel that it's all kind of whirred in there. Okay, and then we're just doing our fancy old marinade where I've cut this into half. Can you see? This would have been, now that I'm touching this, this is a really long piece of meat that comes kind of right there from the belly. And so just to make it manageable, I cut the length of it in half. And then I'm just gonna pour my marinade right over it. It's just salty and tangy and sweet, and you're just not gonna believe what it does to this meat. Do y'all love steak? I mean, I just love steak. I could go on and on about it. It is sure good, and this is such a good fresh salad. You're gonna love this. Okay, so I'm gonna give that a little squeeze and burp, get the air out, and then I'm gonna you kind of wanna massage this just the littlest bit. And, you know, really, I would say, you know, the longer the better on this marinade. Probably no less, we usually say like no less than an hour. You could probably do a half hour if you wanted. It's good, and the longer it kind of sits there, the more tender it gets, and the more flavor gets into that meat. But that's what we're gonna do right now. We're just gonna let that sit. And then I'm gonna trade out and get a new cutting board, and we are gonna start on our tomatoes. Now, most salads just have tomatoes that are just tomatoes, right? But not us. We're gonna actually cut these tomatoes and do a little something something to them to make them so delicious that you want to eat just the bite of the tomato by itself. So good, y'all. So we're gonna marinate these in just a few minutes. We're gonna show you how, and then we're gonna let these steaks sit here and get all yummy and delicious. And when we come back, we're gonna keep on rolling on our steakhouse wedge and delicious grilled steak. This is Cooking Today.
Cooking Today, sponsored by West Rock Coffee Company.
Hi, welcome back to Cooking Today. We are making some good stuff today. And listen, if you decide that you're gonna make this recipe and you look at the ingredients list, don't panic. Because, you know, we've made some things in here before that are, you know, don't have just a ton of ingredients. This one's got quite a few ingredients, but y'all, here's what I'll tell you. 2 things, maybe 3, 2. You probably have a lot of these seasonings in your cupboard or pantry. And some of them you may or may not have been using, so you need to go ahead and just get them on out. And then 2, it is worth the work because we're making homemade ranch dressing right now for our wedge salad, and it has so many ingredients. And I'm talking about homemade. There is nothing like it, nothing. It is so delicious, and it just takes a little bit of extra time to do it. But y'all, you could drink it, and I'm not kidding. It's so good. And if you're like us, we dip everything. We dip pizza crust, we dip breadsticks, we dip chicken fingers, we kind of dip it all. So you're gonna wanna get in the habit of making this and doubling that batch and keeping it in your fridge. It's delicious. Okay, before we start these are all ingredients, plus some of that over there. This is all for just the ranch. But what I wanna do first, while our skirt steak is kind of camped out over here getting good and flavored, I just have some grape tomatoes, which is a real classic, or cherry tomatoes, whatever y'all call them, which is a real classic ingredient on top of a wedge salad, which, you know, generally a wedge is an iceberg, lettuce, kind of, you know, quarter, tomatoes, bacon, and usually blue cheese or some kind of, you know, stinky soft cheese like that. I'm doing gorgonzola today. It's kind of like blue cheese. I would say kind of on my personal flavor scale. Blue cheese is especially strong and kind of stinky cheese. And then I would say gorgonzola is next. And you could always just do feta if you wanted to, or even goat. So I'm going with gorgonzola today. And then bacon, you know, that's always on top of a wedge. So we've got our cheese, our bacon, our tomatoes, and our ranch dressing. So we're just doing kind of amped up every little layer. So rather than just slicing tomatoes and plopping them on the top, why wouldn't we give them some fantastic flavor? Might as well season and flavor every step. And that's what's gonna make you love every bite. Right there is seasoning all the steps. So, for interest in color, I have some of these little yellow tomatoes as well. These are so, so sweet. And so I'm just giving them just a little halve. So I've just got them in a bowl. And then I did a little chiffonade on basil. And you know what that is when you have basil leaves, it's kind of hard just to cut them because they're so thin. So you kind of lay them, like stack them like, you know, kind of lay them inside one another and then roll them and then make your slices. It makes it easier, and it makes these pretty long, thin pieces. So I'm putting this basil on my tomatoes with a little drizzle of olive oil and just the tiniest pinch of salt. And then I'm just gonna toss that and let those kind of sit over here with our steak that's marinating. If you wanted to add a little garlic clove in here, you could, just kind of minced up really finely. But that flavor, it's just the next level on just plain old tomatoes. Now, if you don't have time to do all this and you don't have basil, then just eat the tomatoes anyway and make the salad, because it's delicious and you certainly don't want to miss out on it just because you don't have the basil. Okie doke, but it sure is pretty. Okay, are you ready? Ranch dressing. So what we've got, lots of ingredients here, and you can get this full recipe on our website, homemade, which starts with half cup sour cream, half cup of good old-fashioned buttermilk, because you know, after all, it's usually buttermilk ranch. And then we're gonna take, am I just not seeing it? Oh my Lord, y'all, it's right in front of my face. I know, old. Do you ever do that? Like have your glasses on your nose and you like look through the house for your glasses? Or my husband the other day, we were laughing because I think he called me on his cell phone but said he couldn't find his cell phone. It's just because we're old people. I was looking for my little Spurtle. Okay, and then we want to add a full cup of mayo to our dressing. Now listen, we've talked about this. Mayonnaise is mayonnaise, so you want to use real mayonnaise, not the salad dressing kind, because it won't give you the same flavor. And we're going to all this trouble to make homemade ranch, so we want it to be amazing, don't we? Getting down in there and getting it out. So I'm eyeballing my cup. That's pretty good. I just hate to leave that. There's just a little bit left. I'm digging it. There we go. Okay? And then we're going to do a little squirt of Dijon mustard. A little bit, maybe about a teaspoon, tablespoon or so. And you know, you can kind of taste as you go and add in more of what you like and less of what you don't. And we're going to do a couple of dashes of Worcestershire, a little savory bit. I'm going to do a couple of shakes of red pepper flakes. I know, isn't that a surprise? Not a ton, just a few, because that little bite in there is so good. So we've kind of worked through all of our jarred and prepackaged things that go into our dressing. And when we come back, we are going to go into all of our good fresh chopping and good bites that are going to really take this creamy mixture and turn it into good old-fashioned, real honest-to-goodness homemade ranch dressing when we come back. This is Cooking Today.
Iced tea, sponsored by Lipton.
Experience the local sounds, sights, and taste of the Fayetteville Farmers Market.
Do you know the producer behind your food?
What about how far away your food was grown?
Local to us means your food is harvested hours before traveling less than 60 miles to our market.
Enjoy music, chef demos, and special events while you shop for locally grown produce, meats, cheeses, flowers, artisan crafts, fine art, and more.
Visit us Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday on the square.
The Fayetteville Farmers Market, 100% local and loved.
Hi, welcome back. We are making delicious, so many flavors, good stuff, steakhouse wedges with this beautiful grilled, marinated flank steak that I said flank, it's skirt. I told you that it is not flank, it is skirt. It's so good, it's all marbled and delicious. We have it marinating right here, hanging out. We've got this going in honey and balsamic and a little Worcestershire and some ground mustard. Hanging out, we got a preheated grill. I'm gonna put that on here pretty quick, but we are finishing our homemade ranch dressing. So before the break, we did all of our kind of packaged creamy things like the mustard and the sour cream and the mayonnaise and the buttermilk and a little dash of Worcestershire, all the things that kind of came out of the jars. And now we're moving to the flavor. So what I've got is a shallot, and you don't want to use a ton of a shallot. because you're going to get these bites. You know, we're not cooking this down. So what bites you get is what bites you get. And so you just want to use a little bit. You don't have to, I mean, I guess this is kind of like up to you on what you want to, you know, how much you want to use. I usually do about a tablespoon or maybe a heaping tablespoon of it because I do love this bite. I love a little oniony bite in my dressing for sure. And I love a shallot in a vinaigrette. And so I really love it in this creamy ranch. Now, I know it's kind of a headache sometimes, especially if you're in a little bit of a hurry or you're just, you know, tired of doing it. But to spend the time to go over, when something says minced, that's more than chopped, you know. That means you're going to have to spend a little bit more time going over it. And it's really worth the extra little bit of time that you're going to spend chopping this up. So I'm just going over it and kind of piling it back up with my knife. Chop, 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 chop. That's the nice thing about having one of these knives that rock, because you can really keep your blade down and then just rock the back part, but the blade stays down. And that's why sometimes you'll see I use like a flat knife, you know, that's got more of like a blunt, straight edge, like my Nakiri knife that I really love. And then for this little action, I've got my rocking knife. Did you know that that's the difference? Did you know that? Pretty neat, huh? So I've spent a little extra time, a few extra little rocks, and I have a good, nice little minced shallot in there. And then we're going to do about the same thing with our garlic. And again, as much or as little of this as you would like. Now, I would say make it the first time. I've always said this, but make a recipe the first time the way that you see it and follow those directions. Because if somebody's going to the trouble to write the recipe and put it out there, it's probably pretty good the way that it is. And then the next time you make it, you can adjust. I had to stop talking because I was getting close to my fingers. I had to be sure I kept those. That's important. And then same thing goes with this little garlic. I'm just going to go back and forth and back and forth. And you know, garlic is super sticky. But we're just going to go over it a couple of times. I mean, I love garlic. You know I do. I just use it like crazy. Love it. Okay. I love that little bite. I mean, garlic can kind of like, kind of stings your nose. It's kind of, I don't know, peppery a little bit, if that's the right word for it. I love that bite. Okay, and then this is the easy stuff. We're gonna do a little squirt of lemon, because I don't know if you've noticed, but we don't really have a vinegar of any kind in here in our dressing. And you know, most of the time dressing has a little bit of an acid in it. And so we're just gonna do a squeeze of just a half of a lemon, not the whole thing. And then we're going to do some dill. I really love the dill. So I think my recipe has a couple of tablespoons in there because I really love it. It's one of my favorites. I've made dill things on here before. I mean, right now, even smelling this, it's like making my mouth water. It is so good against this creamy base. So we're just going to put in a couple of tablespoons of dill. It's like wet grass sticking to my fingers and my knife. And then we have some parsley. And then that's it. I mean, that's a lot of ingredients, but listen to me. When this sits here and it gels together and meshes and those flavors develop, and you eat this on your salad, or you end up dipping it, you know, your pizza crust in it, or chicken fingers, you're gonna wanna call me and tell me thanks, because it's good. And then we're gonna be friends because we love ranch so much. We're gonna be kindred. I'm gonna finish chopping this parsley, whisk this together. When we come back, I'm gonna have our steaks grilled. I'll tell you a little bit more about how we did that. This is Cooking Today. Welcome back. We are just wrapping up a beautiful steakhouse wedge salad with honey balsamic grilled skirt steak that we grilled during the break on a really hot grill, about 450 degrees. Got a good sear on both sides for about 6 or 7 minutes each. And then that's it, and I've just let them come back in here and rest for a few minutes. That honey and that balsamic just got this beautiful, like crispy, pretty places on this meat. And all you want to do is cut some really nice thin pieces. And I kind of cut it on kind of a little bit of a bias with my knife at an angle. And you just get some really pretty, flavorful, tender bites. And then I'm going to keep cutting that in just a few minutes and nibbling a few pieces. And then I've just cut these big, pretty hearts of romaine, these big, long romaine wedges. And we're going to top this with our beautiful tomatoes that, remember, we marinated with a little salt and basil and olive oil. Look how pretty that is. Oh, my word. And then some gorgonzola. You could use feta or blue cheese is super classic at the blue cheese. But I sure love this gorgonzola. Oh, it's pretty. Bacon that we already cooked. It's nice and crispy. And then our homemade ranch dressing that is to die for. You're gonna love it, y'all. This steakhouse dinner, pour yourself a little glass of Lipton sweet tea. You've seen us make that here. You're gonna love every single bite. This is Cooking Today.
Cooking Today, sponsored by West Rock Coffee Company. Kitchenware is provided by mayonnaise. Groceries provided by Harps, Hometown Fresh. Online Elements sponsored by Fayetteville Farmers Market.